On Arirang News, President Yoon will make a trip to Indonesia and India next week to attend the ASEAN and G20 Summits, with regional security and climate change likely topping the agenda. North Korea fires 2 short-range ballistic missiles into the sea late on Wednesday night in a drill simulating nuclear strikes in South Korea under the regime's leader Kim Jong-un's observance. This follows hours after the U.S. deployment of strategic bombers during a joint drill with the South. South Korea is bringing prices down to help people better enjoy the Korean Thanksgiving holiday Chuseok, falling in the last days of next month. And October 2nd has been designated as a special holiday, allowing extended rest. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with President Yoon heading to Indonesia and India next week, ramping up multilateral diplomacy by attending the ASEAN and G20 summits. He plans to expand South Korea's role in regional security and economic issues. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young has a preview of his week-long trip.
President Yoon will strengthen Seoul's engagement in the Indo-Pacific at key multilateral summits next week in Indonesia and India, with North Korea's nuclear threat, climate change and regional cooperation high on the agenda. The top office announced Thursday that the South Korean leader will attend a series of meetings of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the Group of 20 in the Indonesian and Indian capitals, which will focus on regional security, economic and social issues. Arriving in Jakarta on Tuesday, Yoon will first meet with Korean expats before holding a summit with the 10-nation ASEAN bloc on Wednesday morning. The leaders of Japan and China will join for a +3 meeting, with South Korea representing the Northeast Asian trio. The security-focused East Asia Summit on Thursday will address North Korea's threat to the region, along with South Korea's role in upholding a rules-based international order. Yoon will then hold one-on-one summits, then a bilateral with the Indonesian president upon their 50th year of diplomatic ties.
Through the summit with Indonesia, a leading country in ASEAN and a key partner in implementing our Indo-Pacific strategy and the Korean ASEAN Solidarity Initiative, we plan to discuss ways to strengthen strategic cooperation in diplomacy and security and deepen partnerships in future industries such as electric vehicles and batteries.
Resuming his multilateral diplomacy in New Delhi, Yoon will highlight Seoul's response plan to climate change and its growing role to bring peace and prosperity in the world as a global pivotal state. The leader will speak during the sessions of the G20, proposing greater support for countries vulnerable to climate change and stronger global cooperation for the transition to clean energy. Yoon will also emphasize the need to establish new global norms in a rapidly changing world, having presented a digital vision back in June for ethical standards on digital technologies. With ASEAN countries and India making up some 21% of South Korea's export markets, the top office says President Yoon will roll out economic diplomacy, encouraging active business and exchanges between future generations, particularly in the digital sector.
We'll strengthen cooperation in advanced industrial supply chains with Indonesia and the Philippines, whose electric vehicle and battery supply chains are closely connected with ours, while also discussing supply chain cooperation measures under the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, along with 7 ASEAN countries in India.
Amid questions over a possible bilateral with Beijing or a trilateral including Tokyo, a senior official indicated that such meetings are unlikely to happen next week. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles into the sea late on Wednesday night in a drill simulating nuclear strikes on South Korea. They were overseen by the regime's leader Kim Jong-un and came just hours after the U.S. deployment of strategic bombers during a joint drill with the South. Our Choi Min-jung reports. North Korea has fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles in a display of discontent over Seoul and Washington's combined military drills.
According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, North Korea launched 2 SRBMs toward the East Sea from the Sunan area between 11:40 and 11:50 p.m. on Wednesday. The JCS confirmed that both flew around 360 kilometers before landing in the East Sea. Considering the flight distance, it seems likely that the launch was a test to show that the North is capable of hitting South Korea's Garyongdae military complex, where the headquarters of the Army, Navy, and Air Force are located.
If the missiles are launched from the Sunan area and can travel around 400 kilometers, I think we cannot rule out the possibility that it could target Garyongdae.
Wednesday's provocation is the first ballistic missile launch in almost 40 days. The launch appears to be retaliation against Seoul and Washington's Ulji Freedom Shield exercise, particularly as the two sides on Wednesday held a joint air drill over the West Sea involving a U.S. B-1B strategic bomber. The JCS strongly condemned the launch, calling it an act of significant provocation that undermines peace and stability. The U.S. also denounced Pyongyang's provocations and reaffirmed its ironclad commitment to South Korea.
This launch is in violation of multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions and possesses a threat to the DPRK's neighbors and international community. Our commitment to the defense of the Republic of Korea, Japan remains ironclad.
North Korea's state-run media also reported that its leader visited the military's command post on Tuesday as the regime commenced a command drill involving the entire army.
This could be seen as North Korea's version of the Ulji Freedom Shield exercise, which strongly aims to counter the South's drills with the U.S.
The report also said the drill was preparation for a full-scale war to occupy all territory in the South. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
On the last day of the annual military exercise between South Korea and the U.S., forces from the two countries conducted a live fire drill aimed at countering North Korea's growing threats. Our Lee Dae-hyun reports.
The air forces of South Korea and the U.S. on Thursday held a live fire exercise together over the West Sea. This was part of the Ulji Freedom Shield exercise, which involved air-to-air missiles and air-to-surface missiles. Around 30 fighter jets and attack aircraft were deployed where the joint forces practiced striking a simulated target. South Korea's fighter jets, including F-35As and F-15Ks, launched an air-to-air missiles to intercept and strike a drone target which performed as a low-altitude cruise missile. Air-to-surface missiles, including GBU-56, were then launched to destroy the opponent's defense structure. The GBU-56, which features a semi-active radar homing system, is capable of targeting mobile weaponry such as a transporter erector launcher.
We have reaffirmed the excellent performance of the Korean-made FA-50 jet and the guided bomb and improved our strike capability. We pledge to use this skill to immediately punish enemies in any possible provocations.
Captain John Flanagan, who took part in the drills, also said that Seoul-Washington integration is still evident and paramount today, even after American pilots defended South Korea's freedom 70 years ago. Meanwhile, the chairman of Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kim Seung-kyun, met General Anthony Cotton, the commander of U.S. Strategic Command, who's currently visiting South Korea. The meeting took place at the B-1 bunker in southern Seoul, making Cotton, who visited the country for the first time since taking office in December last year, the first U.S. strategic commander to visit the wartime bunker. They shared their assessment of the security situation in the region, including North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. They agreed to bolster cooperation between Seoul's JCS and the U.S. Strategic Command and also decided to closely cooperate with South Korea's envisioned, quote, strategic command, which will be established next year. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Russia says that it's maintaining positive relations with North Korea based on mutual respect, with contacts being made between the two at various levels. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Thursday that Moscow intends to deepen ties with Pyongyang, calling the North a very important neighbor. Following the White House statement of North Korea and Russia exchanging letters to advance arms negotiations, Moscow did not confirm or deny whether or not it had actually taken place. South Korea is bringing prices down to help people better enjoy the Korean Thanksgiving holiday, Chuseok, falling in the last days of next month. And October 2nd has been designated as a special holiday, allowing extended rest. Our Shin Ha-young reports.
After months of cooling on the inflation front, South Korea is likely to see price volatility due to rising food prices caused by extreme weather conditions and a surge in global oil prices. These concerns are growing, particularly as consumers prepare for the Chuseok holiday in late September. In response, during an emergency economy meeting held by President Yoon on Thursday, the government announced measures to minimize consumer difficulties.
추석 성수품에 대한 가격을 작년 가격을 유지할 것이 아니라 한 5% 이상 낮춰서 국민들께서 넉넉한 명절을 보내실 수 있도록 최선을 다하겠습니다.
As part of these, 160,000 tons of farm, livestock, and fisheries products will be supplied to markets, the largest amount ever for a Chuseok holiday. In order to boost consumption, the government will provide an all-time high of roughly $50.7 million in subsidies for discounts for about a month starting Thursday. Consumers can get up to a 40% discount at supermarkets and local traditional markets when purchasing agricultural produce and up to 50% on livestock products. Another key measure includes strengthening support for stabilizing people's livelihoods. The government will provide a record 43 trillion won, or around $32.5 billion in fresh funds to small firms and merchants to help them meet cash demand. It will also temporarily expand financial aid for damage to houses, agricultural products, and livestock caused by heavy rain from the recent typhoon. To boost tourism, 600,000 coupons for accommodation will be given out during the latter half of the year. Meanwhile, October 2nd has been designated as a holiday just for this year to allow for an extended period of spending starting from the Chuseok holiday that begins on September 28th and ends on October 3rd, which marks National Foundation Day. The anticipated benefits from this holiday designation are estimated to be around $3.8 billion. 신하영, 아리랑 뉴스.
Amid concerns over seafood safety following Japan's release of wastewater from the destroyed Fukushima nuclear power plant, President Yoon Suk-yeol visited a major fisheries market to personally shop for and consume some seafood. The surprise visit to Noryangjin Fishery Market on Thursday, according to the presidential office, was to check on the safety of seafood there and to boost the morale of the merchants. For his purchase, he took advantage of the special discount, which runs until the end of the year, while also checking radiation safety through a QR code. Earlier in the day, he announced the government will allocate more than $60 million from its reserve funds to support the sector. He also pledged to counter the effect of fake news on the fisheries industry, as well as organize the distribution of gift certificates and discounts of up to 60% for seafood products. On the economic front, data for the month of July show a slump in industrial output, retail sales, and as well as facility investment. Our Moon Hae-ryun reports.
South Korea's overall industrial production, spending and investments all fell for the first time since January this year. According to Statistics Korea on Thursday, industrial production in July fell by 0.7% from the month before, following a rise across all three sectors between May and June. It's the first time in 3 months that industrial production has seen a downturn on month, a situation that has been attributed to the decline in output from the mining, manufacturing, gas and electricity industries. Production in the electronic components sector showed a sharp decrease of over 11%, but a 28.5% increase in the production of apparel during the same period limited the overall decrease. Output in the service sector also saw a decline due to production falling in the dining and accommodation sector in July. Facility investments saw the biggest decline in over 11 years, falling by nearly 9%. This was due to a downturn in the transportation and machinery sectors, which fell by over 3%. In particular, investments in the transportation sector fell by over 22%, owing to the poor performance of automobiles in retail sales. Retail sales, a key gauge of private spending, fell by over 3% overall due to weakened demand for durable goods, including automobiles.
The termination of the cut in the buyer's tax for passenger cars in June led to the decline of automobile sales on month in July by 12.3% from a 13% increase in June.
Seoul cut the tax on car purchases from 5% to 3.5% back in 2018 and extended it in a bid to boost domestic demand during the COVID-19 pandemic. The decision to terminate the extension in June came as the country's tax revenue fell in recent months and auto sales peaked. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Amid high inflation in South Korea, average real wages in June have dropped on-year for 4 consecutive months. According to the Labor Ministry on Thursday, average monthly real income per employee of companies with more than 1 regular staff in June, adjusted for inflation, stood at 3.4 million won, which is around $2,500. This is a drop of about $17 compared to the same period last year. A downward trend started in April last year and lasted for 10 consecutive months before picking back up again for 1 month. Meanwhile, the average monthly real wages during the first half of this year fell for the first time since 2011 by an on-year decrease of more than $40. Foreign workers have long been essential to certain sectors of the Korean economy, like farming, and with the country's labor shortage growing, other industries are also looking for workers from overseas. Our Lee Soo-jin takes a closer look.
As South Korea's population continues to age and birth rates drop, its working age population is expected to decline at an increasingly faster rate.
South Korea's working age population, which made up 71% of the total population in 2022, is projected to drop to 46.1% by 2070. This stands in sharp contrast to the global working age population projection, which will still be around the 60% range. In farms like this, where the labor is physically arduous, one local farm owner says foreign workers are already essential.
It's not a stretch to say that currently without foreign workers, there won't be any farming.
Oriel Emmanuel is a worker from the Philippines who came into the country as a seasonal worker just 11 days ago. Seasonal workers are foreigners who are legally hired for a short period to work during the busy farming season. Today, he, his fellow workers, and the farm owner are planting cabbages. Oriel left his home country for the first time to find a job in Korea.
Best part? All. It's a good opportunity. It's because of my family.
Housing is provided and the farm owner is proud of the amenities that he has made available.
외국인들이 이렇게 오면 덥고 그러니까 여기 지금 보다시피 에어컨도 설치가 돼 있고 주거 실정이 다 해결할 수 있는 그런 곳으로 다 만들어서 편하게 지낼 수 있게끔 만들어 놨어요.
He hopes that foreign workers will continue to apply with the local government to work here.
But it's not just jobs that are physically strenuous that need more workers. Areas that require high level of education and training, such as the IT industry, are also suffering from a labor crunch.
The software industry was calculated to have a shortage of more than 6,000 people as of the end of 2021, the most out of the nation's 12 main industries. Smaller IT companies are struggling even more from the shortage of personnel, as it's difficult to compete with big companies that offer lucrative paychecks.
For SMEs like ourselves, it's hard to operate with just Korean developers.
Sumaya Ilkin, who has a doctorate in computer engineering, is an IT researcher who moved from Turkey to Korea last year to work at this company.
We have a strong relationship with Korea, kind of blood brother. So I'm curious about Korea because especially the metaverse and AI field in the Korea also is a kind of a rising star.
Sumaya says she's not only satisfied with the work that she's doing in this company, but she's also grateful for how everyone has been helping her.
I might have some misunderstanding about the jobs, tasks related to it, and these people passionately explaining us even with more details.
Her manager says that she has surprised them with how quickly she adjusted and that she's now a crucial member of the company.
Her ability to learn Korean as soon as she came here was astounding. We also learned a lot from her.
There are still other IT companies looking to recruit experts from overseas. And job fairs like this aim to connect these companies to foreign job seekers.
In Korea, at the moment, it is lack of, I think, human resources, is lack of engineers.
There are IT experts from all over the world who are more than capable and ready to work.
Now I'm pursuing my master's in computer science and engineering. I work with image processing. I'm looking for my job.
College, it was in computer, like science and computer things, so that's how I felt like a little bit comfortable to come here and look for a job.
The addition of foreign workers could not only ease the labor shortage, but also help companies in other ways, such as expanding into global markets. 이수진, Arirang News.
The COVID-19 infectious disease level in the country has now officially been downgraded to the lowest out of the 4-tier classification. Accordingly, there are changes in response strategies and management systems. Our Shin Se-byuk explains what has changed and what remains the same.
As of August 31st, COVID-19 has become a Class 4 infectious disease in South Korea, on level with the seasonal flu. Infectious diseases are categorized into levels 1 to 4 based on their contagiousness and other factors like reporting timing and required isolation. Class 4 represents the least severe classification. Consequently, sentinel surveillance of COVID-19 will be implemented. That is a major shift from the mandatory surveillance system that was being used to monitor the virus. COVID-19 had been categorized as a Class 2 infectious disease up until now. The national crisis level of COVID-19, though, will remain at warning. That's level 3, the second highest alert in a 4-tier system. Other big changes can be found in medical response systems. Up until now, symptomatic individuals could have a rapid antigen test free of charge. But with the adjustment, now people have to pay up to 50,000 won. High-risk groups, though, such as those aged 60 or older, or those with underlying conditions, remain eligible to receive around 50% of the fee. The same goes for PCR tests as well. One-step clinics for COVID patients and at-home rehabilitation services such as remote consultations with doctors will be terminated. But operation of ICU beds and wards reserved for COVID patients will be kept. As for financial support for people who contract COVID, only severe cases will be eligible. Living expenses will no longer be provided and the government covering paid sick leave for COVID will end. However, support for oral treatment and vaccinations will remain in place at no cost. Most of the public health measures will remain in place to better manage high-risk groups. Mask wearing at hospitals and group residential facilities remains in place. Preemptive testing for inpatients and medical facilities along with caregivers and staff will continue as well. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Hurricane Idalia slammed into the Florida coastline on Wednesday morning local time, killing at least 3 people before sweeping into Georgia and South Carolina. Idalia made landfall near Keaton Beach as a Category 3 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of over 200 kilometers per hour, causing extensive flooding and widespread power outages. 1 person was killed in Georgia by a fallen tree, and according to Florida Highway Patrol, 2 deaths have been reported in separate weather-related crashes just hours before the storm. Idalia hit the Big Bend area, which hasn't seen such a deadly storm for at least 125 years.
Sunny skies will make a return for Seoul with highs of 30 degrees Celsius tomorrow. Central regions will be mostly warm along with clear skies, but for the south of the country, a low-pressure system will continue to take over, spreading continuous rainfall. Showers will continue for the south until this Saturday. The coastlines of Gyeongsang-do province will see heavy downpours of up to 200 millimeters. Jeju Island and inland regions of Gyeongsang-do province will see up to 150. Jeollanam-do province can expect about 30 to 80 millimeters. Seoul will start off at 20 degrees tomorrow, and Daegu will be rainy at 22 degrees. Wide temperature gaps of more than 10 degrees are expected for some regions, with highs jumping significantly. Daily highs in Seoul will get up to 30, Gwangju 31, Gyeongju and Busan will be topping out at 27 degrees. Another round of nationwide rain is in the forecast this coming Sunday. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that brings an end to this Thursday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Good night.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠.